Welcome back to the deep dive. You send us these sources, articles, research papers, sometimes entire books, and we process them into a clear, potent shot of knowledge, custom tailored for you. Today, we are unpacking the business philosophy of Tony Hsieh, the visionary leader behind Zappos, and of course, the author of Delivering Happiness. Okay, let's just jump right in. We're not just talking about, selling shoes online. We are diving into a really transformative business model, one that directly links employee fulfillment and customer joy right to the bottom line. The whole story, I mean, from a scrappy online retailer to a company sold to Amazon for over $1 billion, it was all built on this pretty radical idea that culture is your greatest competitive advantage. So the central challenge Shay was trying to solve was this. Can prioritizing happiness, truly prioritizing across the whole business, can that genuinely drive massive profits and long-term purpose?
That is the core question. And Hsieh, he absolutely answered it. Our source material today is focused entirely on his insights, drawn right from Delivering Happiness. It's a remarkable text because it's not just a business manifesto. It's really a blueprint that marries operational strategies with some deep psychological principles. So our mission in this deep dive is to extract the mechanics. We want to show you, the learner, exactly how Zappos translated these vague ideals like happiness and culture into measurable, profitable business actions. We'll detail the specific frameworks he developed, proving that when you commit to optimizing happiness for everyone, employees, customers, and investors, it just leads to better, more sustainable outcomes.
And the frameworks are what make this so useful. This is not soft theory. No, it's structured application. We're going to detail some truly counterintuitive strategies, like why Zappos was willing to lose money up front by offering $2,000 to new hires just to get them to quit. That level of commitment to cultural purity, that's the reason their customer service became, well, legendary. To understand that level of risk, we kind of need to go back to the beginning. Tony Hsieh didn't found Zappos on a wing and a prayer, He had earlier success, a massive, one selling his first company, Link Exchange. That was an early web ad network, sold to Microsoft for, what was it, $265 million.
And that's a crucial biographical point. That earlier success, it gave him the capital, sure, but more importantly, it provided the mindset. Hsieh had been through hyper-growth. He's seen the struggle of trying to maintain a culture during that growth, and he felt that ultimate hollow feeling of selling a company where the core purpose had been lost. So when he founded Zappos in 1999 as an online shoe retailer, he was, I think, determined to build something different.
And starting with shoes online in '99 was so risky. People were really hesitant to buy clothes or footwear without trying them on first. So how did Zappos get over that fundamental barrier of trust in the beginning?
They overcame it by making this massive upfront investment in removing all risk for the customer. That's what established the foundational customer experience strategies that set them apart. It cemented trust and loyalty. There were three key pillars they introduced right away, and they were, frankly, outrageous for the time. First was free shipping, but not just free shipping to you,
Right.
but free shipping both ways. That just eliminated the biggest concern, the friction and the cost of returning something that didn't fit. Second, they implemented a wildly generous 365-day return policy.
A full year.
A full year. That just signals this immense commitment to your long-term satisfaction.
But the third pillar, the service experience,
Yeah.
that's what really defines them, right?
Absolutely. The third was the mandate of absolutely no sales scripts for their customer service reps.
Absolutely.
It was. They empowered the reps to actually solve problems, genuinely connect, and spend as much time on the phone as they needed. I mean, there are famous stories of Zappos calls lasting hours, helping a customer find a competitor's product if Zappos didn't even have it.
But wait a second. If they're spending all this money on shipping, losing money on returns, letting reps spend hours on the phone with no scripts, isn't that a recipe for financial disaster in the short term? How is that scalable?
And that's the genius of the Hsieh philosophy. He viewed customer service not as an operating cost to be minimized, but as a marketing tool to be maximized. The analysis showed that these strategies, which look expensive per transaction, they led directly to repeat customers and powerful word-of-mouth marketing. Zappos wasn't spending millions on, extensive ad campaigns. They were investing those resources into service. They treated that emotional connection with the customer as a far more powerful and a far more sticky form of advertising. They prioritized lifetime value over the immediate transaction profit.
That reframes the entire discussion. They saw friction reduction and trust building as their main marketing channels.
Precisely. If you eliminate friction and you maximize trust, customers come back and they tell their friends. It's a self-reinforcing loop.
Okay, that makes perfect sense for customers. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because the question then becomes, how do you maintain that level of personalized, almost obsessive, enthusiastic service consistently across, potentially thousands of employees? You can't just hire for it unless you design a system to support it.
And that's where the culture engine comes in.
Hmm.
Hsieh realized that the standard business approach, setting aggressive sales goals, treating employees like cogs, they would never produce genuine wow-w service.
Hmm.
To produce a consistent emotional product, they needed a consistent, emotionally engaged workforce. So for Zappos, culture wasn't a perk. It was the business model. And to operationalize this, it had to be defined first. They didn't just have some vague mission statement. They established 10 core values. And these were tangible, non-negotiable behaviors.
And the most famous one, the one that became the company's whole mantra, was deliver WOW through service.
Exactly. But, articulating a value is the easy part. Enforcing it is hard. They embedded these values into every single aspect of the company, especially hiring and firing. They looked for culture fit first, skills second. They even interviewed candidates in informal settings, sometimes outside the office, just to see how they interacted in a social situation.
Which brings us back to that really shocking cultural alignment strategy, the offer to pay people to leave. So after new hires went through their initial training, which focused entirely on Zappos' history, its values, its service standards, they were offered cash to quit.
That's right, the crucial test. New hires, particularly those in the call center, were offered $2,000 cash to quit right then and there if they felt they were misaligned with the company culture. It's an insane policy on the surface. You spend all that time and money onboarding them just to pay them to walk out the door.
So why not just fire them later if they aren't performing? What's the concrete business lesson here for our listener?
The lesson is one of profound strategic patience. It's about defining the true cost of misalignment. See, Hsieh understood that the financial cost of paying $2,000 to a person who's a bad culture fit is vastly outweighed by the long-term, non-monetary cost of letting that person stay. A culturally misaligned employee, someone who doesn't believe in those 10 core values, is corrosive. They drag down morale, they diminish team performance, and critically, they can deliver an anti-WAFU experience to customers. That undermines the whole brand promise. So the $2,000 offer was an investment in cultural purity. It filtered out people who were only there for a transactional paycheck. And it proved that Zappos was serious about their values being more important than just headcount. Hsieh stresses that you have to define your core values early, test commitment constantly, and invest in continuous education to make sure the culture scales deliberately as you grow.
So culture is the engine, and that engine is self-cleaning, but happiness is the fuel that makes it run. Hsieh realized that to successfully scale this model, he needed to move beyond just good morale. He had to dive deep into the psychology of human fulfillment itself. And this is where he formalized the frameworks that make delivering happiness such a valuable read.
Precisely. For the learner looking for structure, this is key. Hsieh provided clear conceptual models. He moved past superficial ideas of happiness and identified specific, measurable elements that businesses should optimize in the workplace. He called these the 4 pillars of happiness that drive employee engagement.
Okay, let's detail those because they provide a fantastic roadmap for anyone trying to build a resilient team.
The first pillar is perceived control. This means giving employees genuine autonomy in their decisions rather than constantly micromanaging. For a Zappos rep, that meant they controlled the call, the solution, the time spent. No reading from a script means control.
Which is the exact opposite of the traditional dehumanizing call center model.
Exactly. The second is perceived progress. That's the feeling that you are constantly moving forward, you're improving, learning new skills, achieving goals. Zappos invested heavily in internal training and promoting from within, so there were clear paths of progress. The third is connectedness through relationships. This is crucial. It's about team building and making sure people feel part of a genuine community, not just coworkers sharing an office. They had mandatory fun, team lunches. They focused heavily on social bonds. And finally, the fourth pillar is vision or meaning. The employee has to know their work contributes to something larger than their individual task. For Zappos, that was contributing to delivering happiness, not just selling shoes.
Right. And if you hit all 4 of those pillars, you've got empowered, fulfilled employees ready to deliver that wow service. But Hsieh didn't stop there, did he? He also categorized happiness itself, moving it beyond just a fleeting good mood and into a strategic business goal. He described the 3 happiness types.
Yes, and this framework is critical for understanding the difference between short-term satisfaction and long-term fulfillment.
Okay, so type 1 is pleasure chasing. This is short term, instant gratification. The happiness you get from buying a new gadget or hitting the buy now button. It feels good, but it fades fast. It's necessary, but it's not enough.
Right. Then type 2 is passion pursuing, which involves finding flow states.
Hmm.
This is that deeper satisfaction you get when you are totally immersed in a challenging activity like coding or running a marathon or learning a new skill. Time just disappears. This is deeper for sure, but it's still largely centered on the individual activity.
And the third, the highest and most lasting type, is higher purpose. This is that sustainable, long term happiness that comes from knowing your work contributes to something meaningful that's bigger than yourself. It's what drives nonprofits, mission driven companies, great teams.
And the connection point she makes is that leaders must align company goals with that higher purpose. The mission can't just be make money.
Hmm.
The mission has to be something that taps into that type 3 fulfillment. For Zappos, that was the ultimate goal, using shoes and customer service as the vehicle to deliver happiness to the world.
That structural thinking is what gives this whole philosophy its legs. It connects seamlessly to classical psychological theory.
It does. She used this entire structure to connect back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but he applied it to stakeholders, customers, employees, investors. Maslow shows you need to meet the base layers, security, safety, basic needs, before you can move up the pyramid toward self-actualization. So in a business context, if you meet the basic needs of a customer reliable shipping, clear return policies, no friction, you establish that base layer of trust and security. Only once that trust is there can you then use the Zappos culture to fulfill those higher level needs like emotional connection and a sense of shared purpose. You have to cover the basics before you can aim for the WRW.
And that's why those seemingly expensive policies, like free shipping both ways, were non negotiable. They weren't just logistics. They were covering the foundational layer of the customer Maslow pyramid, which then allowed the Zappos culture to deliver on the higher level needs. They were buying the right to have that deeper relationship. So, what does this all mean when we look at the results and the lasting advice? The core tension we started with, can happiness actually scale profitably, is resolved. The answer definitively is yes. This investment paid off not just in culture, but in a very successful business exit.
That's the lasting takeaway. Hsieh provided this holistic framework that synthesized culture, psychology, and commerce into a sustainable, profitable engine. The lasting advice in delivering happiness is clear. Success hinges on early, non-negotiable core value definition, continuous investment in cultural alignment, even paying people to quit, and treating service as a genuine emotional connection, not just a transaction to move a box.
Zappos proved that investing heavily in the well being of the people involved, the customer and the employee, provides not just profits, but also passion and purpose. It creates this powerful, self reinforcing ecosystem. It showed that culture isn't some soft side project you get to when you have spare time. It is the single most important measurable factor in long term success.
And that's a deep dive that gives you the structural thinking you need to build a resilient organization. You now have the shortcut into the philosophy that built a billion-dollar culture based on, well, radical generosity.
Absolutely. Thank you for guiding us through those frameworks and showing us how Hsieh made the psychological so applicable to the commercial. It gives us a lot to think about, regarding where we place our own resources and energy.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to consider, based on what we've discussed today. We know Zappos used that $2,000 quit offer to ensure cultural alignment, showing they were willing to incur a direct monetary cost to protect their values. So this raises a question for you, the learner, in your own environment. What non-monetary cost, maybe the cost of slowing down growth or sacrificing a lucrative but misaligned partnership, or even foregoing short-term profit? What cost is your own business or your own team or maybe even your own life willing to incur to guarantee true, unwavering commitment to its core values? Think about the difficult trade-offs that are required to protect what matters most.